What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. You know we're trying to get them likes up. Make sure you leave a comment. I think you might enjoy this show. We're going to take a little bit of a different approach today. You guys know I brought a federal judge on. I brought a defense attorney on. I brought dudes on that have been to prison, dudes that I spent time with. But today I'm going to bring this brother on. You might have seen him. He's got the Birdman Drug Stories YouTube channel, so if you can, go check him out after the interview. But I'm going to bring him on. We're going to talk a little bit about addiction, about the struggle, because there are a lot of viewers on here, dudes that get out of prison that are struggling with addiction and, uphill battle. It's not always easy, and I've talked about this before. When my father was a heroin addict, he was a drug addict. When my brother had killed himself, found my father in a house getting high. So it is an important subject for me, and it's an important subject for all the people. But Birdman, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, tell the people who you are, where you're from, and we'll get into it, bro.
All right, sounded good. Thanks for having me on, showing me that respect and give me a chance to spread my message of hope and recovery. So, born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. It's the 413. I was jailed in the 508, which is Worcester, Massachusetts. That was Memorial Day weekend. It'll be 6 years ago. And then I got clean in jail. I stayed clean, and I moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been here the past 4 years.
Let me ask you a question, right? You weren't always a drug addict, obviously. What was your upbringing like with your family, your parents? What type of household did you grow up in?
I don't have the story. My story's a little bit different than some, but it's similar to others. I wasn't raised, say, in the ghetto where we didn't have much and we were living in poverty. But then again, we weren't necessarily rich. I was in a middle-class town, lower middle-class working town. My parents were factory workers. They're from Portugal, so they don't really speak English. In my mind, I always had a resentment towards them that, we were poor because my friends had nicer shit than I had. The thing was, actually, my cellmate in Worcester is the one that enlightened me that I was the selfish prick throughout that whole thing, which is his mom was using crackhead and would, pawn his Nintendo and shit like that. Never got no presents, be selling his shit. And I explained to him my upbringing, and he's telling me that, I'm the spoiled one. I'm like, God damn, I never looked at it like that. I looked at it like I was having a pity party, but a normal middle-class family from a working middle-class town. I wasn't in the hood getting high, but I ended up there towards the end.
What did your parents do for work? I'm curious.
Oh man, my dad had a pretty cool job. He worked at Smith & Wesson. Their factory is up in Springfield, Mass. They actually just moved it. They're moving to Tennessee because Massachusetts is government stuff or whatever, but he was a gun maker. He worked at Smith & Wesson in the factory, and he really tried to instill values in me, but I wasn't ready to listen. I had these resentments towards my family that we weren't good enough, or that I wasn't good enough. I always felt like the poor one out of my friends, but we weren't even poor. There was always food in the fridge. I had necessities. We weren't eating steak and lobster every night. But in my mind, we were poor, and all that did was push me more towards drugs. My mom, the same thing. Language barrier, doesn't speak the language. A great woman, did what she could for me. She didn't know anything about drugs, but she was a factory worker too. She worked in a textile factory, but my dad was a gun maker.
So your dad was a gun maker. Did he have guns in the house when you were a kid?
Yeah, man, he had one, man. Shit. The freshman year, me and my buddy skipped school. I knew he had the gun. He got one for his 25th anniversary. They gave him an engraved revolver. It had his name. Engraved on it in a chrome revolver. It was real nice. And it has his name on it. It said 25 years of service or something like that, right? And I knew there's only one lock. There's only one safe type thing in the house. So I'm like, well, the gun's got to be in there. Me and my buddy skipped school. This is the dumbest shit. Kids, if you're watching, don't do this shit. We were drinking vodka. We skipped school and we're just pounding vodka. My dad is European. So in the basement, we had a full stock bar to the point where I could take a bottle and you would never fucking know. There's probably 100 bottles down there, right? And we took a bottle of vodka from the back. We refilled it with water and all that good stuff after. We got hammered, right? And I was like, yo, I think I know where my dad's gun is at. It's probably in the safe, and I know how to pick the lock. And, we're hammered on vodka. We're 14 years old. We're kids. And sure enough, I picked that little lock. It was like a chest. It was a chest with a gold lock. All I needed to do was probably my first devious thing that I did, right? I freaking picked that lock. And the gun was in there, and it wasn't locked up. There was no bullets with it, thankfully, because we were playing with it. And we freaking took out the gun, and we're just like, we had never seen a real gun. We never held a real gun. We thought this was like fucking amazing, right? And we're hammered. We're playing with it. There's no bullets. We checked the revolver part. There's no bullets. We're just hammered playing with the gun. And it was fucked up. We knew there was no bullets in there, but we're still like pointing it at each other and shit, like kid shit, really reckless type shit. But yeah, there was a gun in the house. I picked the lock one time to play with it. I think my parents found out because then they moved it. Next time I did that, it was gone.
I want to talk a little bit about the drug addiction because there are, we talk about a lot of kids in the hood, man, committing crimes, selling drugs, doing robberies, going to prison. But there's another class of kids too that are misdirected. And it sounds like you were in that class once upon a time. So you're in high school, you're hanging out. When do you start using drugs? When do you start thinking like, man, I'm going to, was it at a party? I mean, how does that start?
Well, it started off, and this is why the controversy of whether or not addiction is a disease, I've been on both sides of the fence. I've thought both of those things. And here's what I say. When we're young, we all try a little bit of alcohol, or at least most people I know try a little bit of alcohol when they're underage, right? But not everybody's going to start doing all these drugs and end up graduating to a heroin addict. So I started with alcohol because I was young, and my parents being from Portugal, I used to help my dad make wine at home, homemade wine. I still know how to make it. I used to help him every year. I look forward to helping him make it. And I think this is where I had the addict mindset, even as a little kid. I knew if I did a good job helping him, right, we would crush the grapes. There's like a lever, you crush the grapes, then you have to let it ferment for however, I don't know exactly how long it is, right? I was a kid. We let it ferment. I knew if I did a good job helping him, that he would let me like try the wine, right? So I was like helping him, doing manual labor to help him. The light at the end of the tunnel was that I was going to get to try the homemade wine. And homemade Portuguese wine is not no bottled wine. It's very, very potent. It's really strong. And so I got into drinking at a young age because it was okay to drink. My parents were like, everybody drinks. And even the kids would be sneaking drinks. And it wasn't a big deal, but they were totally against drugs. I started smoking weed was 8th grade and freshman year. Freshman year, we smoked some dirt weed, some swag weed, some Buddha Brown, all sticks and stems. And I got into smoking weed then. We went on a field trip. And I didn't know how to roll a joint. I had my cousin roll a couple of joints for me. So I'm like, yo, I bought a bag off him. And he's like, yo, I can't do anything with this. Like, can you roll the joints? He's like, all right, don't get in trouble at the field trip. You know what I mean? So he rolled up the joints. We snuck them there. We were at Newport, Rhode Island, at a beach. It's like a rich area, Newport, Rhode Island. And we went up there. We went to the beach. And as soon as we got off the bus, we went to the beach, and we were going to smoke a joint. My first weed experience was pretty terrible. I smoked the joint, and then, your heart starts beating faster. I started panicking at 14 years old. Like, oh my God, my heart's going crazy. I like sat down, I plugged out. I thought I was going to pass out and faint because I'd never been high before. And then I made my first weed sale. I was like, man, fuck this shit. Like, this shit's crazy. And I sold my other joints and got my money back. I'm like, wow, that worked out good. Like, I didn't pay anything, and I got all fucked up. It wasn't like love at first puff. But then after that, I became more experienced smoker. I was hanging out with my older cousins. One of them passed away, so rest in peace to my older cousin who passed away due to drugs about 2 years ago. But I had older cousins that I was like, they was
hold on, I'm going to stop you. How did your cousin pass away? Fentanyl?
He was found dead in a hotel in Florida. He had graduated to heroin as well from the same town. His dad owned a bar in my hometown, and yeah, I don't know if it was fentanyl. I never got like a cause of death. Like, I don't know. They didn't release the toxicology report. It was an overdose. I'm not sure what killed him, like what drug.
So you end up going from marijuana's kind of the start. What, like gateway drug kind of? That's the start. And then you graduate, you said. You graduate to heroin, right?
Eventually.
Tell me how you graduate to heroin. What possesses you to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to try some heroin today.
And that's a fucking thing, man, is that I say that's why I do believe that that addiction is a disease, because we all try maybe smoking a joint or having a drink, but we don't all end up going to the depths that I did and many others. And some people even went way further than me. I'm not like the king of the junkies or anything like that. Like, for example, I never shot up yet. I say yet because I used to say that I'll never do dope, and I turned into a heroin addict. So I always say yet, not planning on going and shooting up. But what I'm saying is you always have to be aware of that. Your path could lead you there. And how I ended up in heroin was years of coke and ecstasy. And when the pill craze came out, where all the Oxycontins were being overprescribed, there was a doctor in my hometown that was like a crooked ass doctor. Can I say his name? I don't know if it's bad to say his name on here. I had a crooked ass doctor from my hometown. And he was prescribing everybody.
Yeah, stay away from his name. We're not going to talk about his name.
That's what I was figuring. So he already got busted for it. Anyways, but he freaking he was prescribing the whole town. And one night I was looking for ecstasy pills because I love to take ecstasy with my ex-girlfriend from many years ago. We're looking for ecstasy pills. We used to take them all the time. And a couple of my connects blew me off. Oh, I'm going to get them. Oh, I ain't got them. You know, give me the runaround. And then we went to a house party. I got me and my ex. We got this money, but like we didn't find no ecstasy pills. And I'm mad. I'm frustrated. And my other boy was sitting there. He had a little blue pill, right? And I'm like, he's like, I got pills. I'm like, yeah. He's like, they're not ecstasy. They're not what you want. And he goes, it's a Percocet. So what the fuck is that? So like, what the dentist gives you? He's like, you'll be fucked up, man. I said, how much do they cost? He goes, $30. I'm like, God, man, $30? That's expensive. Get an ecstasy pill maybe for 10 or 15. I said, this shit better do the trick. So I bought one for me. I bought one for my girl. And I asked him, I said, I don't like popping shit. I like to sniff things. Like, kind of sniff it. He goes, yeah, I sniff them all the time. So I went in the bathroom. I sniffed the pill. And I was kind of disappointed because I was expecting like an ecstasy type party, upbeat feel. And I was just glued to the couch. I didn't really like it too much, and then I got raided. What really got me into pills more, and the pills is what led me to the dope. What got me worse than pills is we had a grow house back in the day in Springfield, and it got raided. When it got raided, I called my boss at the dealership I was working at. I'm like, I used to sell weed and shit, so like I could just be honest with him. He's like my boy. I'm like, yo, we got raided because he knew I had a grow house. I'm like, we got raided last night. Cops are looking for me. Like, I'm hiding out at my girl's. I'm probably going to find a hotel out of town until this shit blows over. I find out, like, what I should do. He goes, all right, man. He goes, well, if they get you, you know, hit me up if you need anything and come back to work when you can. So basically, you let me hide out for a little bit. I made it a couple weeks until I got arrested. Once I got arrested, I had lots of serious charges from the grow house operation. And after that, when I did go back to work, there was my boy who I was at work with from my hometown, too. He goes, yo, I heard what happened to you, Bird. He goes, that sucks. He goes, you look really stressed out because I was a mess, right? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, I got something that'll help you calm down. I said, what's that? He goes, a little green pill, which is a 15 milligram Percocet, the same as the 30 milligram Percocet I took at the party maybe a month prior, right before I got raided. So I went in the bathroom. I sniffed the $15 green pill. When I got out, this is like a life-changing moment. When I got out, you already know that I broke my sales slump. I was so high, I sold 2 cars that day. I was happy. I was upbeat. I'm on game with the customer. I'm like, yeah, look at the fucking anti-lock brakes, whatever, the sunroof, whatever. I'm like all into it. I sold 2 cars that day, and I'd been in a sales slump because I was so stressed out about getting raided that I was in a little slump. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, these pills made me sell 2 cars today. I made like $700 in one day, making commissions. So I'm like, well, if I just have these pills all the time, I'll be rich.
Yeah, so you thought that because you were high, you could sell cars. I see dudes like that in prison, man. They get high on heroin and they just do some of the best tattoos. They'd be nodding off once in a while, but they'd be doing some of the best tattoos. But so you're stuck in this now. You're in this cycle of addiction, and that leads to heroin, right?
That's right. At least the heroin, and like I said, the only thing that got me off pills, I tried getting them off a couple times. Went to detox, went to rehab, but I could never really get it. The only thing that made me not care about pills was when I got into sniffing heroin, because then I was like, well, heroin's cheaper, and I just graduated to the dope that way out of like desperation and brokenness.
So I guess selling cars kind of slowed down. You weren't getting rich while you were high, were you?
Yeah, it was a complete opposite. It turned into, oh man, this is a game changer too. So I'm now doing this for a couple weeks, every day. My friend keeps bringing it to me every day. And then all of a sudden, he didn't have some one day. I'm like, all right, man, bring some tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, I go into work, and I'm starting to get like a runny nose, and my body hurts, and I had no idea I didn't know what a withdrawal was. I swear to God, back then, I didn't even know what withdrawal was. But I'm explaining my symptoms to my boy who's selling me the pills, and he goes, oh, you better slow down with them pills, buddy. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're dope sick right now. I'm like, what do you mean I'm dope sick? I said, I never did dope in my life. I'm thinking he's saying I'm on heroin. He goes, no, those pills are like a man-made heroin. I'm like, damn, thanks for letting me know now that you got me unintentionally hooked on them, or, I would think unintentionally, but maybe not. So that was the fucked up part, which was I didn't get rich. I actually had the opposite of that, because now I'm calling out, I'm dope sick, right? So now I'm like, I'm going late to work, waiting on the pill guy to come by because I can't go to work if I'm sick. And now now I'm missing work. I'm calling out sick. I'm being late. I'm getting fired from jobs for all the, you can tell drug activity. I'm late all the time, all disheveled, borrowing money from everybody at the dealership. It was obvious.
You ever overdose?
A few times, man. There's the coma. The coma time was the first time I overdosed. I guess I went big, which was I never overdosed before. I thought I was like immune to overdosing. I guess I did a $60 line of heroin after being clean in a program for about 3 months. I got kicked out of the program, not for failing a drug test. I actually paid one of the dudes at the sober house to vacuum for me, and they kicked me out for that because it was against the rules. I made it a week until I relapsed, and I went and got a $60 bag of heroin. It was like real tan shit. You used to get it from these Dominican kids up in Massachusetts. And I did a $60 line. I didn't like save some for tomorrow. I didn't do a little to see how it was. I'm like, fuck that. I'm about to get lifted. I haven't done this shit in a while. I broke up the whole $60 line. And the people I was with were like, yo, be careful. This shit's good. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, I never even overdosed before. I was like, don't worry. I've been doing drugs my whole life. I'm like acting like I'm the king of the druggies at that point. So I sniffed the whole $60 line, which is a fucking huge line of heroin. And then I was driving. I was dropping everybody off. I guess I was driving fucked up. I was going off the road and shit. We pulled over, and the people I was with there, yo, I'm driving. I'm going to drive you home. So he drove my car back to my apartment at the time, dropped me off. I went inside, and I got real cold. When I got real cold, I'm like, yo, I got work in the morning. I was like, I'm just going to go to sleep, right? And I went and passed out with like the shivers, and that's the last thing I remember. I guess my roommate went to wake me up because he worked at the same dealership now in the Boston area, Framingham, Mass area. And he went to wake me up for work. He thought I was joking around. He tried to wake me up, but I didn't wake up. He called the ambulance. They Narcaned me a couple times. Nothing. Nothing brought me back. They rushed me to the ICU. I was in there for 5 days. So that was my first overdose. I was in a 5-day coma, and then I had since overdosed on a double overdose day. I overdosed twice in the same day after that. So I've overdosed a total of 3 to 4 times. Definitely 3, maybe 4.
After that first overdose, right? You get out of the hospital. Do you want to get high right away, or are you like, holy shit, man, I need to get my life together?
Both. I know it's weird to say both, but it really was both because it scared me from the opiates and the dope, right? I knew pills were too expensive by this time. Once I'm getting into heroin, the pills are drying up out there. So they went from $30 pill when I was doing, now dudes are charging 40, 45 for the same shit I used to get for 20 or 25. And it was fucking, it was pretty crazy. When I got out the hospital, I was scared to do heroin again because I almost died, but I wasn't scared I wasn't ready, I guess, to stop doing other drugs. I was like, I'll just sniff coke. I did coke for fucking 15 years. I never ended up in the hospital. And so I was like, I'll just do some more coke. But the thing with that is, if you're a drug addict like me, you start fucking around with coke, you're always going to end up eventually. You might last some time. Eventually, you'll end up right back at that drug of choice. And it took me about 2 to 3 months. As soon as I got back up on my feet and like got back hired at another dealership, got money again, as soon as I had a paycheck, I'm like, you know what? I said, I'll get a little bit of dope just today. That's what I talked myself into. Obviously, it was every day.
Was there ever a point when your drug addiction left you homeless or nowhere to go, where you were hungry, maybe living in what they call a bando? Any of that stuff in your life?
Yeah, I had a few times. Like I mentioned my small town where I grew up, right? And a couple of times that stick out to me in my mind is one time I was homeless and my mom had kicked me out because right when I started sniffing dope. And just started like, she knew I was up to no good. She didn't know exactly what. So she kicked me out, rightfully so, right? So she kicked me out. I got nowhere to go. And by this time, all my friends have turned from good people to now I'm just hanging out with like the other drug users and junkies of the town. So my quality of friends is very different than it was. And it was just really fucked up, man. I couldn't grasp it. I couldn't fucking turn the corner. And when I was homeless, I ended up sleeping behind a junior high school. It's I can say the name of my junior high, Paul R. Beer Middle School, a little middle school in my hometown of Ludlow, Mass. And I had nowhere to go, and it started raining that night. I'm like, fuck, dude, it's raining. And I was like, just walking around on foot, no driver's license, dope sick, right, just a mess. Nobody wants to fuck with me in the whole town. All my friends have left me for dead at that point. And I ended up sleeping in the fucking dugout of my old junior high school where I went to school as a kid. And that's one that is etched into my memory. I remember sitting there in the fucking rain under the dugout, like cold as hell because it's pouring rain. And I'm all wet too. Like, just because I'm under a dugout don't mean I'm not getting rained on a little bit. I'm sitting there getting rained on. And I remember just sitting there crying and thinking to myself, because I'm at my old junior high school and having memories of like what I wanted to be when I grew up and shit like that, like your kids' memories. I'm like, how the fuck am I sleeping in the dugout as a heroin addict right now with no family and no friends and nobody left? That's one that really stuck with me. Is I was crying in the rain in the dugout my junior high. Another occasion I freaking was homeless again. I slept like down by the woods of
I want to stop you.
school.
I want to stop you. I want to ask you a little more about the elementary school, right? I talk about this, I think, in my book, and I've talked about it on the videos where there were points in my life in prison where I could be out there playing softball, and for the moment I wasn't in prison. I was thinking about what it was like when I was out there playing, fastball when I was a kid, or playing football. It took me back to a certain place. And sometimes we have these reflections when you're sitting in that dugout. That was your reality staring at you in the face. Sitting in the dugout, there wasn't a mirror, but there was a mirror, because you were reflecting on your life and saying, wow, how did I come from being a good kid in middle school or elementary school? I was having a great time here. I remember, maybe there was a carnival there, or maybe you were playing softball there, or maybe you were kicking a soccer ball. You're Portuguese. Maybe you were doing that type of stuff there. And now you're like, wow, look at what my life's become. I'm at my school in a dugout, getting rained on, and here I am, alone, by myself with my thoughts. This isn't the life that I want. This isn't the life that I thought I would have. Was there a point where your parents were finally done with you? They didn't want you in the house? They had enough? You couldn't go back home?
They kicked me out lots of times, but normally I was able to give them a sob story or have a pity party about why I've changed and this time will be different. And I'm always telling, yeah, I'm off the drugs, I'm doing great. I just had some rough fucking weasel my way back into living there. Like that time they kicked me out at the dugout, they let me move back in one time after that. And then when they let me move in that one time, I totally fucked that up. I was trying to have my dad let me borrow like $20, right? I had no job, no way of paying him back, but I was dope sick. I was already into the heroin by this point, right? And I'm trying to borrow money off him, and he had done it the last couple of days. He would believe my stories. I'd be like, yo, I need a haircut for a job interview or something, right? And you give me the money to get a haircut. I come back home high as a kite, just wearing a hat, right? No haircut. He's like, what the fuck? You obviously didn't get your haircut. Where's the money? And then I make up some story about where the money went, right? And so the day that him and my mom must have had a talk, that they got to draw the line, and they can't give me money no more. They can't enable me anymore. I had other family members that were coaching them that had experience with maybe their kids and shit like that. And so they won't let me borrow money. They drew the line in the sand, and literally, this is not a story I'm proud of at all. This one hurts me the most. It really hurts my heart still. We've made amends, and we're good on current day. My parents love me very much. We talk all the time. But back then, they wouldn't give me the money. They put their foot down. I didn't take no for an answer. So what I did was they had what's the Apple thing? The iPad. My dad had an iPad, which is like his prized possession. I've seen it right there on the table, and they had told me I ain't getting no money, and I was like freaking out, screaming at them. Mind you, at this time, I'm like 30 years old. I'm not 18. I'm not 21. I'm fucking 30. I shouldn't even be living home. But there I was. I took the iPad off the table. I'm like, well, if you guys don't give me $20, I'll definitely get $20. I'll sell this. And my mom starts panicking. She's crying hysterically, telling me, "Oh, please, please!" She's yelling at me in Portuguese, "Please, please, please, calm down." And my dad, who had open heart surgery a couple years prior, he's like boiling over, doesn't know what to do with me. And I'm screaming at him like scary, disgusting shit, bro. I'll never forget this shit. My mom goes, fine, I'll get you the money. And when she said that, here's how sick I was at the fucking time. I was so happy. I'm like, yes. I'm like, it worked. I'm like, I'm a fucking genius. Mom goes, yeah, I gotta get it. It's locked up in the room. Go outside. I'll bring it to you. And my mom's never lied to me in my life that I know of, right? And right, this was that one time, but it was for a good reason. They never came out with the money. Next thing that pulled up was the fucking cops, and I got taken away in cuffs.
Man, that's a crazy situation, man. Like, our parents, man. So many people, even myself, man, sometimes we abuse our parents, right? We take for granted some of the things that they do for us, but I can tell you today, man, I love my mom more than anything in the world. My father passed away, but I love my mom, bro. And it sounds like you love your mom too, but you allowed your drug addiction to allow you to abuse them, man. Like, that's got to be the breaking point, man. When does the breaking point come? Because I know there comes a point in your life where you finally get your shit together. What is the breaking point for the Birdman?
Breaking point for me was, it wasn't even that time, right? I still had years of more chaos ahead from the iPad incident at home. So years of more chaos. I didn't have a solution to my drug problem. I was like, I can just stop doing drugs at any time. I don't need meetings. I don't need any of that shit. the turning point was in jail, which was in 2016 in the Worcester House of Corrections. I told you in the beginning, and I was there. And when I was there, everybody's getting their commissary, and everyone's getting mail and stuff on the block. And where was an eye-opening moment was nobody was answering my phone calls like during tier time or whatnot. So no one answered my calls. No one returned my calls. I sent handwritten letters to anybody whose address I might know. Nobody ever wrote back at all. And so on mail day, they're going around Worcester jail, which is like not the nicest fucking city to begin with. And I started thinking, like, am I the biggest piece of shit in Worcester jail? I'm like, that can't be. And that was the moment that changed me. At that point, I was sitting there. I had no commissary, no money on my books. I'm getting used to eating the state trays, right? But even that, like, I'm still hungry. I can't really eat. I've always been a skinny kid, but I'm coming off of years of heroin abuse, so I'm really hungry. I mean, I was so desperate. It was the gift of desperation is what I call it. The gift of desperation was in that jail cell. I fucking got down on my knees. I never really prayed before other than like, oh, God, help me out of this mess, or oh, God, please, like, let me fucking figure it out. I never did a real, legitimate, heartfelt prayer in my life. I kind of was turned off to God prior to that because I thought, poor me, why is my life so hard? The answer to that question is obviously with drugs, but in an addict's mind, you always point the finger. I did. And I remember getting down on my knees in the jail cell. My cellmate's like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, I'm going to say a prayer. I just started reading the Bible. And I prayed a desperate prayer in my jail cell in L Block of Worcester that I was hungry and I was scared. And I'd never been in jail before, and like I need protection and I need some food, or I'm like gonna starve. And that desperate prayer right after that, this is mind blowing. I got this shit all written in my jail notes to myself in my bag that I kept in my whole life. I got all my jail letters I wrote to myself because no one was writing me, so I was writing to myself to remember all this shit because I knew it might help me one day. I refer to those letters all the time. And long story short, about 10 minutes later, fucking the commissary got there for the block, and now I'm like even more depressed. Shit, everyone gets their food but me. I made a couple of jail friends in there, right? All of a sudden, like right after 10 minutes after my prayer, commissary gets there. They came by. They're they didn't call me Bird in jail. They called me Waldo because I'm skinny and I wear glasses. So in Worcester jail, I wasn't Bird. I was Waldo, which I'm like, fuck it. If they think it's funny, might as well keep these guys laughing then, right? Then not. And they came by. They blessed me. They gave me like a chili bowl. They hooked me up with some ramen, right? Shit like that. And I'm like, damn, yo. And I was like, I just prayed that I was hungry. I needed protection. Now, all of a sudden, I got like these jail friends, right, that I'm making, and they're blessing me with food. That's when the light turned on.
So your stomach wasn't touching your back that night?
No, I mean, I ate well that. That was the first time I ate well, man. Couldn't even eat the state trays. The first couple of days, I was coming off the drugs, and honestly, I was scared to go into the regular population because I'd never been there before. I'm like, man, I was like, I heard Worcester jail is like a bad jail, right? And I was scared to go in there, so when I got there, like any good scared junkie, I went in there, and I was like, I exaggerated like hell, so that they'll put me in the medical unit. I figured the medical unit, maybe I could make some jail friends and then go from there. So I basically had them bring me to the medical unit. I couldn't really eat the food. I was trading my trays for shit because I couldn't even eat because I was coming off the dope. But I did a week in the medical unit. Then I went to a block called Newman, and then into regular population on L Block, which is an unsentenced block. But that was a turning point, was that desperate prayer, man.
You know what, man? It's a blessing that you went to jail. It's a blessing for a lot of people when they go to jail because sometimes it is the wake-up call, and I'm glad that you got the wake-up call. And you've been clean how long? 6 years now, you said?
Yeah, it'll be 6 years, coming up on 6 years. God willing, it'll be a Memorial Day weekend. That's why I went to jail. I got drunk, done coke, and beat up my roommate that night. So, like, that was my clean date, right? That was, it'll be 6 years coming up here in the springtime.
That's good. Are you working now?
Yeah, man, I'm about like a regular old, living like a happy, normal type life. I'm still a little bit different because of my past, but like, I pay my bills. These are all things I learned in fucking jail. I used to rob drug dealers all the time, right? Not like with a gun and a mask, but I would be like, yo, front me a 50 pack. I was like, I got it. I was like, I got plenty of people that'll buy it. And I would talk them into fronting me shit. I would never have the money, right? I just kept doing that and doing that. Jesus. And it was just crazy. I called it like a robbery with a smile. Like, I smile at them, they smile at me, they give me a bunch of drugs to sell. I go do all the drugs. I came back with nothing. But when I went to jail, you can't change your cell phone number in jail, right? You can't fucking not answer your door in jail. So that's where I learned. I'm like, shit. If I do any of my old stunts in here, I'm probably gonna get fucked. I'm gonna get fucked up if I do any of my old dirty bird shenanigans. My boys used to call my stunts. They call them dirty bird shenanigans. I knew I couldn't do that shit on the inside. I'm not a huge dude. I was gonna get fucked up in there. So that's where I learned responsibility, payback. If you do make a debt, pay it back when you say you're gonna pay it back. Simple shit that my parents did teach me growing up. I wasn't ready to fucking listen. But in jail, I had to listen. I had to change.
I'm glad that you have. So what are you doing now? Are you selling cars again?
Yeah, I'm back in the car business. I don't overdose behind the dealership anymore like I used to, which is good. I work internet sales department at a big dealership. I got cousins that were in the car business back home that when I got out of jail and they see me get my 1 year clean, they see me at the sober house. I became the sober house manager. So I was doing good with the recovery shit. And a cousin I hadn't talked to in years randomly hit me up. Hey, I moved to Charlotte some years back, and I bought a couple of car dealerships, so if you want a job, just let me know. And I was there by the end of the week. I was like, all right, I'm like that. So I told my girl, I'm like, you want to move to Charlotte? And she's like, all right. And I came down here first. I drove down here, and I flew her down. So that's how I ended up in Charlotte.
That's what's up, man. I'm glad to see you doing good. So, you've overcome your addiction. You're doing good. You're living a good life. How's it feel to be clean, man? To wake up every morning like, wow, man, I'm no longer that dude.
Man, I was like a slave to the drugs all those years where I couldn't get out of bed unless I had something to wake up to or I had someone coming by with some shit to like get off me, they call it, to not be sick. It's a really freeing feeling, right? And having that freedom, you gotta be careful with complete freedom. I'm preaching to the choir, right? I gotta keep in mind who I am and what I am. I don't put myself in fucked up situations out there. I don't go like out to even though I don't drink, like I'm not chilling at the bar. Because you know what? I got no reason to be there. If someone's having a birthday party, that's one thing, and it's my friend, but like I'm not just out there like putting myself in dangerous situations because I know one bad feeling, one bad decision, and all this shit will go away, man.
I feel you, man. So I'm gonna get ready to close the show, right? I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, sharing your experiences, but there's some young man out there right now, just like you. He's struggling. You can tell him 1,000 things. But the change don't come until they want the change, right?
Yeah, that's the main point, which is my family loved me, my friends loved me, and they wanted me to change. And they would beg and plead and even cry with me at times. My parents cried a million times begging me to get off drugs. I'm like, I'm not that bad. My one thing that I'd say out there, which is only you can change. Your fiance, your wife, your girl wanting you to get off the drugs, it sounds good, but it ain't good enough. You have to truly want it in your heart. All the other failed attempts at getting clean, all the multiple detoxes and rehabs, they all went nowhere. I wasn't ready to change. I was just appeasing people. My parents wanted me to go to rehab, so I went to fucking rehab. I got out and I was the same asshole that went in there. The difference was when I went into jail, I wasn't the same asshole that went in there. I was a very changed person. I still had a long way to go. I had no license, no car, no nothing. And, God blessed me. I have a beautiful luxury apartment, a beautiful fiance, man. I got my first auto loan, I got my first real car loan, I got a luxury SUV, and man, I used to walk around homeless as a dope fiend, so my mind blows. I wake up with a grateful heart every fucking day because I remember that shit, all the bad stuff.
No doubt. Before we go, what about your parents? What do they think about you now?
Oh my God, man, that's my biggest gift to recovery, man. I'm glad you asked. That's a great question, bro. That's my biggest gift to recovery, man. I joke with my sisters. I told them, I said I went from the least favorite child to number one. Me and my mom talk every day off, which is today, Wednesdays. We talk every Wednesday. We talk every Sunday. Those are my days off from the dealership, right? And mind you, I never wanted to talk to her throughout my whole life. And she didn't really want much to do with me because she wanted me to clean up. But we stayed away from each other because of what was going on. But now we don't, and the way she speaks to me, she says I love you on the phone every time she hangs up, and I hadn't heard her say I love you probably since I was in elementary school, right? But now every time we talk on the phone, she says it, and she means it. You can see it in a mother's eyes that she's proud of you. And I remember praying, I said, I just want my parents to respect me again, man. And, thankfully, I've gotten there, man. That's the biggest gift to recovery is getting their respect.
Well, listen, I'm going to close the show and tell you, man, I really appreciate you sharing that. I hope that message about your mother resonates with some young lady that's out there on the street today. Maybe she's got a cell phone and she's watching, Blood on the Razor Wire tonight. Maybe some young dude, man, that's going down the wrong road, or some old dude going down the wrong road and they say, man, you know what? Maybe he's 50 and maybe his mom's 80 and his mother's been disappointed all his life. But maybe today's the day where he says, you know what? I want to see that look in my mother's eyes, man, where at some point she's proud of me before, she moves on. And I just hope that resonates with someone today, man. I hope your story makes them say, you know what? I don't have to go to the county jail and be scared in order to get right. Let today be the day. Let today be the first day. You know what I mean? So
never too late.
Never too late. Listen, man, I'm going to close the show. I appreciate you once again. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. If you haven't checked them out already, check them out. Birdman Stories. With respect, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. With respect, until tomorrow, we're out.